Hey, welcome back everybody. We're finally back after several days break there. The workload just got to be too much, and you know, it's between the book and the orders and a bunch of data products and everything. And my sleep schedule was kind of off, but I think we're back to normal here and getting into the second half of October. Let's check out what we've got going on with the data. And there we go. We've got some weather out in the western U.S. And yeah, look at that. Just a big frontal system out across the Rockies, the Great Basin, into the southwest. So probably by now you're familiar with this pattern. And let me bring my tools up here real quick. Just give me a second. Okay, there we go. So looking at this map, it looks like we've got a front somewhere in Southern California, possibly up to the Four Corners area, and then into the Northern Rockies, something like that. And then in Canada, you can definitely see a difference between Manitoba, Ontario, and here, where we've got, what you notice here is boxes. If you look at the intersection between the isobars and the thickness lines, they form little boxes, and I can draw one here. So there's one box, and let's try another box right here. And the more boxes you can fit into a certain area, the greater the thermal advection. So obviously we've got quite a bit of thermal advection taking place in this part of Canada. Down in the central U.S., nothing like that. If we try to draw a box, we'd probably get a very large one in this area, so there's very weak thermal advection in that area. But we do have moisture advection coming up from the south. Probably got a bit of a low-level jet feeding all the way from Texas up into Minnesota. And then north of this warm front, we've probably got some showers and maybe even a few thunderstorms possible in Ontario and Manitoba. At least certainly the pattern kind of suggests that. In the eastern U.S., we've got high pressure there across Pennsylvania and New York, and then a little bit of northwesterly flow across the Maritimes and Maine. Easterly flow continues there in Florida. And then for Texas, as I've mentioned, southerly flow in place. And then, of course, the cold air out over the western U.S. right in that area. And the center of the cold air mass looks to be Oregon to Washington, north into British Columbia, and up into Alaska, up in this area right here. So there we go. So quite a bit going on, and we've got another system lined up out in the Pacific right there. So a bit of a stormy pattern we're getting into. And just to show you what kind of weather we got going on, this is the Los Angeles and San Diego area. LA is right here. In fact, LAX located right there, and San Diego right there, and lots of cumulus buildups over the mountain peaks in this area right there. And then over the deserts, we've got blowing dust. Looks like we got a bit of upslope stratocumulus in this area right here, stratus and stratocumulus. And we've got transverse bands, cirrus. This means probably some turbulence. A lot of stuff going on in the upper levels. And if we zoom way out, you can kind of see the pattern there. Let me get that centered there. There's Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So this is where the warm front is. And then we bring that down to the southwestern U.S. And you can see that behind the cold front, we've got a lot of unstable cloud patterns there. If we zoom in, you can see the cumulus cells all through this area, Idaho and Oregon. And it looks like in Idaho, these actually look like possibly thunderstorms in these mountains right there. Other than that, not much going on in the central U.S., just that southerly flow in place, and we definitely got the moisture there over Texas. A lot of stratocumulus and altocumulus and cirrus bands, as we saw earlier. The deep moisture is down on the coast. You can see that cumulus right there, but not as much of that up north. So the air mass there are a little bit drier. And we can probably compare that with the Scuti. And it's always a matter of finding out which tab has it. Okay, there's the model data. There we go. Okay, so we'll compare Corpus Christi there in the tropical moisture. So their sounding definitely reflects that deeper moisture right here, starting out with around 70-degree temperatures there in the lower levels and all the way up to 6,000 feet moisture, and then a bit of a capping inversion. Let's compare that with Norman. Looks different. Instead of the moisture being way over here on the out to the right, where we've got higher dew points are weaker there in Oklahoma. And then we go on all the way up to Topeka. Looks even drier. Plenty of mid-level dry air, but you can see that southerly flow there, 40 to 45 knots, pretty deep. So that's bringing moisture advection into the plains. May not have the moisture itself, but the moisture advection is definitely in place. And there you can see 30 knots right there at Norman. And then at Fort Worth. Yeah, about 30 knots right there too. So quite a bit going on even in the central plains. Now I was looking at Bakersfield earlier today. This is the Bakersfield, California meteor observations. Bakersfield is located, there's California. They're going to be located right in this area here in the southern San Joaquin Valley. And what do we got there on the meteor observations? We've got some pretty strong winds there out of the northwest to the north at about 12, gusting to about 18. Pressures come up to about 30 inches. And one good way to see what's happened is to compare this with yesterday's observations at about 22 to 23. So we scroll back, look at 22 to 23. We can see we had light northwest winds, clear skies, temperatures about at 82 Fahrenheit, dew point about 32, and pressure 2985. So this has definitely come up quite a bit. So right away we can see the changes. So let's see, temperature has changed from 82 to, wow, much cooler, 66. Big change there. So we're definitely behind the front there in Bakersfield. So this is kind of a technique you can use to see where the front is. Because once we go out into the deserts like Las Vegas, it's hard to tell what's going on. I mean, we've got, you can see southwest winds here at Las Vegas. Temperatures around 79. How does that compare to yesterday? East wind, temperature about 84. So a little bit cooler, southwest wind. It can be kind of hard to tell what's going on there. But if you kind of like look back and forth through the trends, you can get an idea of what the atmosphere is doing. But the pressure very low there at Las Vegas, 29.71, and we've got lots of blowing dust. Probably the front is likely right on them or just to the south. Probably right on them, and then maybe we're seeing the northwest winds right there. Let me try Tonopah, a little bit further northwest in the deserts. And we've got definite northwest to north winds gusting to 32, 36, and even 40. Very strong winds there, and temperatures in the lower 50s there. Okay, so we can't really go through every station, but this kind of gives you an idea what to look for. And then, of course, potential temperature, or theta. This is a huge help, and this is the theta map from Albany for 6 o'clock. Yeah, that's 6 o'clock data. So we can definitely see that gradient right there, and that's going to put the front from possibly northern Wyoming down through southern Utah, and then it gets a little bit ambiguous out in this area. So again, we would have to kind of look at the data, but I'm thinking probably something like this right there. And then, of course, we pick up the front there in Canada. So maybe something like that right there. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So we're going to be seeing that front emerge out into the Rockies and the high plains here in the next day or two. And if we have enough moisture, we will have thunderstorms, obviously, in Texas and Oklahoma. So we'll have to watch for that. All right, let's do the region by region, and before I do that, I'm going to put up the satellite, so that way I can take a look at the chat. There we go. There's a look at what's going on across much of the U.S. there. You can see the system right there across the Rockies. And a little bit of that warm air advection there in Texas. Moisture coming up north. Let me take a look at chat, see what we got going on. Got more people in chat than I expected. I figure people would drop off a little bit with that break that we did. But I did want to thank a couple people who have contributed to the webcast who contributed a little extra over the past month or two. That would be Harold Rose during Hurricane Irma. Sent a pizza here during that. Ken Bearden sent in $50 to help the webcast, one-time donation. Guido Flock sent in a few bucks. Caleb Weaver, I appreciate a new pledge. And David in Knox City, I appreciate the beer and the disc with the Weather Channel music. So, yeah, awesome. Every little bit y'all can send in for the channel would be appreciated. And there's that card right there, patreon.com/metlab. And definitely every bit helps, especially as we get into winter here. Things are going to get active here, and hopefully we can keep doing the webcast through the next several months here. Okay, let's see. We got Alpha Lax, and I think that was an old message. Carl Berghoff, Sue M, Veo Joe. Carl looking at that water vapor imagery. Electric Dog and Carl Berghoff talking about the low-top supercells in Wisconsin tomorrow, possible. Carl asking to like. I appreciate that. Ron Chalfant saying hello. And Mike Wan. And just scrolling through here very quickly. Burl H, Funway Tech. Bill Johnson. David Moore. Mentioning it's very hazy in the Metroplex, poor air quality, grass fires to the south. And let's see here, Ryan Toomey is also joining, back in the swing of weather events. All quiet in the tropics, indeed. Mike R. up there in California, Northern California, had the first fall storm. Last night the air is dry again up there. Had some brief moderate rain there. 0.31 inches. Trish Ann Lewin asking about snow in Wisconsin. And a little discussion there from Carl Berghoff about enhanced risk for tomorrow. Borderline moderate risk. Yeah, so we'll be taking a look at that. All right. So yeah, I'll try to cover a little bit of Wisconsin, but there's so much data to go through that I usually miss out on that. It's very hard for me to talk about specific areas unless we actually have a system in that area. Okay, we were going to look at SPC. Let me go to that SPC page there. And we'll see what we're looking at for tomorrow. There's a convective outlook, and yeah, it does look like trouble for tomorrow. This is the first I've seen of this. Enhanced risk there, so that's just short of a moderate risk, and pretty much centered right there in Oklahoma. And then down in the Metroplex, looking for slight risk and a little bit weaker probabilities south of I-20 and I-30, probably due to the strength of the cap in that area. North of that, though, looks like a risk area all the way up to Iowa and into western Wisconsin there. So, yeah, a lot of ingredients coming together. So let's look at the Meso Scale. We'll start out with the southwestern U.S. Okay, so there's the current picture right there. And yeah, we can definitely pick out that front. See the change there in the wind direction. So very well defined. And we even have the pressure gradient right there in central Utah showing up. So let's see what happens to that boundary. Basically pushes south. And then for tomorrow during the day, it looks like we're going to see northerly flow through the Colorado River area. All the way down across Arizona. Yeah, northerly flow pretty much everywhere, so it looks like that cold air is moving southward. All right, let's take a look at the plains and see what's going on there. Okay, current patterns. Let's see. There we go. There's the southerly flow coming up from the Gulf. Low-level jet's going to be kind of in that area. And then for tomorrow, we're looking out west. Let me see how far west I can go. Probably about there. So let's see. Overnight, we're looking for that front to emerge sometime late tonight or tomorrow. Well, looks like we got northerly flow coming down in Colorado. That's going to be probably the Canadian system coming south. And then we're looking for the flow coming in from the west across New Mexico. So let's see where that happens. Let's see, there's west-southwest winds at Albuquerque. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there's the forcing right there. It's very hard to pick out these boundaries when they're out there in New Mexico, but I think with the gusty conditions that were showing up tomorrow morning, I think that's probably the front emerging, and there's the gradients right there in northern New Mexico. So that's probably the front. And let's see, by tomorrow afternoon, yeah, very strong forcing coming southward. And then, of course, the Pacific front. It's kind of hard to see that, but I think it's superimposed kind of like that, and then it's going to ride over the top of this cold dome because the denser air is coming from Canada like that. So that's going to force the Pacific air over the top of that air mass like that. Okay, the main low pressure area is going to be, looks like in southwestern Oklahoma, so that'll help back the winds around the Oklahoma City area. This is a potent area for meso-low development, so that will enhance the risk of severe weather there in the Oklahoma City region. And you can see the winds are kind of backed across much of the plains. 150, that's enough to give us a little bit of curvature there in the hodograph. And then overnight, looks like the main wall of forcing comes southwestward or southeastward. It'll be through the Dallas area probably around midnight, and then just continuing to push southeastward into East Texas and the Austin-San Antonio area late tomorrow night. And definitely some cold air there in western Kansas, below freezing in that region. And then highs for Sunday look to be in the 50s and 60s across much of Texas and Oklahoma. It looks like the high plains, lots of sunshine hitting this area right here, but back in this region, lots of clouds keeping the temperatures down. So we see only upper 50s and lower 60s in this area, so it should be kind of a cool afternoon there. In the Central Plains, we'll take a quick look at that. Well, there's that boundary pushing southward during the morning, and then by afternoon when we get heating, the boundary will have moved into western Iowa, central Minnesota, down to the Omaha area. So we may see some storms going up along that boundary right there. And then, of course, those will push eastward. We'll probably have a little bit of an MCS there moving into Iowa and Missouri tomorrow night. And let's see, do I have a sector set up for the Midwest? Let me see here. I thought I did. I'll just have to key it in here. Let me do that manually. Okay, so we'll try to bring up Wisconsin here. So I got my drink here. This is the sound of a Whataburger Diet Dr. Pepper. So that's helping me keep a little bit hydrated here. All right, so let's see here. That does not look like the Midwest. There's something wrong with this interface here. See, I'm trying to bring it up by typing in the URL. And for some reason, I cannot get Wisconsin to come up here. But we can go ahead and take a look at it off the edge. There it is. There's Wisconsin. So basically, we're going to have the boundary pushing through there. It looks like tomorrow night. This is about midnight. I guess coming up on, I guess that would be La Crosse. And then moving through during the overnight hours. So I think the worst of it is going to affect mostly probably the Minneapolis area down to Des Moines. And then the MCS will kind of weaken a little bit as it gets into Wisconsin there. So that's the short-term forecast there, and for the rest of the eastern U.S., looks like just ridging or easterly flow there across Florida. And then just a very quick look for the Northeast again. Not much weather, just high pressure, very cool weather as usual. Actually, it looks like it warms up to 70s. Pretty surprising there for New York. But that front will be approaching from the west, and Yeah, there's that southerly flow picking up in advance. So that's not going to reach the northeast U.S. probably to about Monday or Tuesday. Okay, I think we can probably head into the forecast. Maybe I'll take one look at the hemispheric weather. Look at the big picture here. And this is showing a very stormy pattern across western Canada and Alaska. A bunch of low pressure areas in that region. In the back of those low pressure areas, we've got the cold air mass right there. So that's helping to give us the low heights across the western U.S. A little bit of dipping of the upper level height contours in that region. And then there's the next system offshore. And let's take a look at the upper level pattern. We've got a very active jet, very zonal pattern across the Pacific. And these very zonal patterns are kind of unstable. So we've definitely will be looking for this pattern to kind of buckle a little bit. When we have fast flow like that, we can easily build a ridge, possibly up into Alaska. That happens often, and that can kick polar air southward. So we'll watch for that possibility here in the next week or two. Okay, so let's head into the forecast. We'll look at the GFS data. Let me get that frame aligned. Okay, very good. Looks perfect. Okay, so this is the current analysis there on the GFS run. Pretty much what we saw with the other charts. So, going into tomorrow, storm system coming from the Great Basin and Rockies area into the plains. And this is tomorrow night when probably about 7 or 8 o'clock tomorrow evening, Pacific front emerging. The Canadian front will be pushing southward too. And the warm front will be way up north, all the way up towards Hudson Bay. So probably some very warm conditions right there in northwestern Ontario. Okay, then for Sunday, looks like a MCS moving eastward into the Mississippi River region. Rainy pattern coming into Missouri and Arkansas. And later on Sunday, that will move into the Tennessee, Mississippi, and Indiana area. So cold air advection coming into Minnesota and Wisconsin there. And high pressure coming into Texas right there. It looks like another frontal system moving southward from Canada. Another little push of cold air advection. There it is right there. And we've got a little bit of an Alberta clipper. See that right there? And the 540 line, that's coming southward. So generally when we see the 540 line coming south, we've got a risk of precip in that area transitioning over to snow. So it looks like that's coming down into Wisconsin there. However, the air mass appears to be dry, so I don't think we're looking at much of a snow risk. 534 coming south, so that's very cold air. Probably some 20s and 30s. And wow, look at that high building in there for Tuesday. So things are going to be very cool across much of the central and eastern U.S. here. And out in the eastern U.S., quite a system coming together. There it is right there. Probably thunderstorms there in North Carolina, Virginia, up to Pennsylvania on Tuesday. And then I'll move into the Philadelphia area and New York right around the max heating time, so probably a few good storms through that corridor right there from central Pennsylvania down to the Delmarva. Okay, so what do we have next coming up after that? Let's see here. We've got the old Pacific and Canadian merged high. This is probably hard to see, but this is kind of where it is. It's located right there. And that's basically stagnating polar air, kind of settling down into the southern latitudes. So, kind of a westerly downslope flow across the Central Plains. And what we're going to be looking for is up north into the northwest. Looks like another system coming south from Alberta. This is around Thursday, Wednesday going into Thursday. So you see that coming together right there. Don't see like low pressure, very well defined low pressure, but we can definitely see the front located right there. So upper level system is going to pick that up, and we're going to see a development of that. And there it is. Another little burst of polar air coming southward. So this is going to be kind of a reinforcing shot coming southward. And wow, look at that push into Texas around Friday. And the 540 line coming all the way down to Wichita with snow. Looks like with this upslope pattern into Wichita, Dodge City, and all the way to Pueblo and Colorado Springs. So yeah, it looks like Wisconsin gets a little bit of that right there as the system passes that region. That's going to be on late Thursday into Friday. And then we'll just have dry air push southward, a little bit of snow on the back end of that system, and things move to the southeast and to the east. And that goes all the way out into the Gulf. That system just plunges all the way south. So that'll probably reach Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas here. And yeah, thunderstorms. So yeah, that's gonna be for Saturday, the 28th. Looks like a very stormy pattern there around Florida and Georgia. Things moderating out west. Boy, we got a lot of stuff to look at tonight. This is a very active pattern. And there we go, another system coming together. See, if we had this going on in December or January, we would be talking about major winter storms through the central and eastern U.S. there. So here comes the next system right there in Wyoming. And wow, yeah, look at that, good grief. And a cold low over central California there for Wednesday the 1st, just after Halloween. So there's the front on the 1st of November. There's the old high pressure area, and here's the new Canadian and Pacific air building in. So a lot of northwesterly flow coming together, and wow, now we're picking up 510. This is probably the GFS cold bias, but very, very large cold pool across the western Great Lakes area there towards the end. That's on the 5th. Let's look at the Halloween forecast real quick. Okay, so there's Halloween. Looks to be a little bit mild in Texas and across much of the eastern U.S., just kind of a stagnating polar high. Most of the cold, blustery weather is going to be up in Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and all the way down to Nebraska. And things look very active in California, Nevada, and Arizona there. Probably more blowing dust in that region during the day. And an upper-level cold pocket across California there. So probably some cold core thunderstorms and showers in the San Joaquin Valley there. So that's what you can look forward to on Halloween. Okay, well, that's about all I got for tonight. I've got some dinner waiting here, and it's getting cold, so I better get to that and then get working on the book. So I don't even have my closing music prepared. Let me get that set up real quick. That way I can just hit a button and cue that up. There we go. All right. So let me look through the chat real quick. Mike R. says the cold front passed San Francisco around 10:30 p.m. last night. 3/4 of an inch over the fire area. That's great news. We love you, Tim. Thank you, Mike R. Looking scary again for the Western California, north to south, from Ron Chalfant there. Red flag. Yeah, we definitely need more soaking rain, that's for sure there. Carl Berghoff uses the NGP sector. Little discussion about the weather maps. Mike R. retired from the Navy as a meteorologist. Yeah, Mike R. was with Navy Carrier Strike Force 3 there. Okay, so very good. I'll go ahead and close it up and work on dinner, and I'll let you guys go. So, yeah, we've got an active pattern coming up here. There's a slight chance I may take one more break because of obligations with family tomorrow. If that happens, I will be back Sunday, however. So we'll just see what happens tomorrow. Anyway, take care, and we'll see you either tomorrow or Sunday.